Hi guys, it's Miss King. We're going to do our second review today. We're going to concentrate on the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. Yesterday, obviously, we talked about the Renaissance and the Reformation. Just a reminder, our unit test is tomorrow. It's 30 points, so you want to make sure that you are definitely studying. These videos are a great tool to test yourself and quiz yourself. You can pause every single question. You can watch the videos as many times as you need to. That type of thing, since you or you can print it out if you have a printer to make flashcards or review in that way. But basically, what we're going to do is we're going to review the PowerPoint. I'm going to talk you through it, and then your review work for tonight is going to be on Edulastic, just more review about the scientific revolution and Enlightenment, so you're ready to go for tomorrow. So basically, who was the systematic collection and articulation of natural laws, such as gravity and motion, created by? So if you think back to those laws of motion, every force has an equal or opposite force. So basically, every action has a reaction. Those types of laws, those were created by Isaac Newton, or often referred to as Sir Isaac Newton. What new approach allowed scholars to gain new scientific knowledge? That's going to be the scientific method, that very strict step-by-step process of finding the answer to a question or a problem that you may have. What was one effect of Copernicus's sun-centered solar system? So this is the heliocentric theory, not the geocentric. Geo means Earth. So geocentric was this theory that the Earth was in the middle, while the heliocentric theory, helio is sun, so heliocentric theory is the sun-centered system. What the problem with that was that it disputed church teachings. The church at the time was basically teaching that the Earth was in the middle because the heavens were above and then hell was below. This really disputed what people had been thinking for a very long time, and it really freaked the church out. The word revolution means major transformation. So what did the scientific revolution transform? The way people thought about the world. They wanted to know, how do I explain it? They knew, it's not that they didn't believe the church. So don't think that the church was like, they're wrong, or they were like, the church is wrong, they're lying to you, whatever. That's not what they were trying to do. What they were trying to do was say, these things happen, and there's a reason that these things happen. So we're going to find a logical reason that these things happen that makes sense, that we can prove scientifically and mathematically. Not that there is no God or anything like that, so please don't think that, but just that there's a system, there's a reason that we can prove using science or math of why these things are happening. Why do people often think of Copernicus on the left and Kepler on the right together? That's because Kepler's work built off of Copernicus's work. He didn't reinvent the wheel, he just took one thing and built off of it. How did the scientific revolution contribute to Enlightenment thought? Basically, the beliefs in the power of human reason. So the ideas of the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution really convinced people to think of, again, there's a process and there's a reason these things happen, what causes them to happen. And so what the Enlightenment was is this philosophical movement that promoted the power of human reason to change. So we can look at how the world works. This is basically what the Enlightenment did. We can look at the societal setup of how society works, and we can say, is this reasonable? Is this logical? Does it make sense or does it not make sense? And so what the Enlightenment did was really get people thinking about how, society in different contexts makes sense, and how it doesn't make sense, how it's equal and fair and how it's not. Is it fair for one person to have absolute power? So based on this quotation, or on the box of the ideas of John Locke, what government would he most oppose? So we can see these ideas. It says rulers receive the right to govern from the people, and unjust rulers can be forced from power, basically overthrown. He so clearly did not like a dictatorship. Dictatorship is absolute power, and if you go back, I can go back, which I cannot, he obviously was the opposite of that. The Enlightenment influenced which American war? That's going to be the American Revolution. Remember, well, you may not know. You're going to actually learn this more next year. But the colonies were under British rule. They were under the rule of King George, which was in England, and they were getting taxed and kind of being unfairly treated. Essentially, there was this system of mercantilism, which we'll talk about in our next unit, that kind of had it had the colonies in a corner, and they kind of said, no, this isn't going to work. You need to, we expect this and this and this and this, kind of these stipulations. Well, obviously England wasn't having it, and so the Americans revolted, and the American Revolution started, and that's how America became America, essentially, because they wanted to do their own thing, and they didn't think it made sense for someone across an ocean to be dictating and telling them how to do things. And so that kind of spurred the entire thing. And there's a lot of other things that you'll learn about next year that kind of spurred that. So what did the teachings of the Enlightenment provide the basis for? So here we see some natural rights. We see the separation of powers. So no one part of the government has all the power. No one person has all the power. Everyone checks each other and makes sure that no one's getting too powerful. That's why we have Congress and the Senate. That's why we have the legislative branch, judicial branch, and executive branch, and they all check each other to make sure that no one group is having all the power. And we see that a lot today with President Trump, Donald Trump, kind of making these rash, very spur of the moment decisions, and then you can see that other or specific states, their Supreme Courts are fighting what he's saying to do and saying this goes against this constitutional right, this goes against this goes against this. They're checking him. They're saying you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, and so then they adjust that, and they adjust legislation to accommodate that. And so you see that a lot right now in our government. Just that the different branches, checking each other. We see that with the legislative branch, which is the Senate and Congress, kind of saying what you're saying, Mr. Trump, is not either okay or they're agreeing with him, and that's primarily based off of political parties. But we do see there's some pushback on that, even with Mitt Romney is a Republican, and he pushed back on Donald Trump's legislation, some of his legislation. Again, so sorry for the tangent, but basically what these ideas were for the establishment of democracy, that being able to have the power of the people, the rights, the participation, giving people a voice. And sometimes it seems like that voice isn't heard, but that only way to kind of get out of that is when you're able, go vote. One vote can make a difference, especially with this upcoming election. You guys aren't going to be able to vote, but it's something to look forward to when you turn 18, is you now have the thought process of, this is who I want to be in charge. Okay, under Spanish rule, Latin American society was divided into class systems by birth. So remember, this is something we saw with all previous, societies that we've talked about, where we were born in this level or this class system, and that's where you stayed. So again, this aristocracy, the rich people, were born in Europe or ancestors of European immigrants. So basically, when the Europeans came under I'm sorry, when the Spanish came over to Latin America, basically if you were like a Spanish European, you were considered above the natives or indigenous. I don't want to say natives, the indigenous of that place. So how did this rigid social class system contradict the Enlightenment ideas? It's kind of obvious. Um, we see it contradicts this idea of this equality among men, that every man is equal. Now, remember, ladies, during this time, women were held to a different standard. So it's going to be equality among men, not everyone. I mean, if you think about it, women didn't get to the right to vote till the 1920s, so more far from that. All right, this is the last question, and this is going to be the paragraph at the end of the test. This is a well, extended response actually, because it's a paragraph. What I'm not going to do is give you the correct response because everyone's going to have something different. So in a paragraph, you have to have at least 5 sentences. If you give me 1 sentence, if you give me 2, 3, 4, it's not going to be correct. You're not going to get the points for it because I need 5 sentences. That's the minimum of how to explain this answer. You're going to explain how the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, and the Enlightenment all influenced each other. So how did the Renaissance influence the Reformation? How did the Reformation influence the Scientific Revolution? And vice versa, how did the Scientific Revolution kind of inspire the Reformation? And how did the Scientific Revolution and Enlightenment influence each other? You're going to use at least 3 examples from the unit. Obviously, you're not going to have really any quotes, but you're going to have 3 examples. So look through the PowerPoints, look through the notes, and kind of, it's basically a question that's asking you in 5 sentences at least to connect the dots between all the 4 movements that we talked about. How did these all kind of, if you take them and you put them all together, how did they create this time period, and how did all of them combine to create this kind of boom of natural rights and things like that? So just think about connecting the dots. How did they all influence each other? And again, 3 examples from the unit to support your response. Again, go back to PowerPoints, go back to notes, go back to Elastic homeworks, go back to all of that to get those answers. The test is not going to give you your score right away just because there is the paragraph at the end. So that multiple choice is everything before, then this is just the short answer. So you want to make sure you're studying. You want to make sure that you are focused. Even though you're at home, this is a test. This is a unit test. So just because you're at home and just because you're not in the classroom setting, this is still a test. Just one thing too to remind you, if you did not complete the Renaissance ideas, so that's humanism, individualism, and secularism, if you did not complete that quiz that was actually a couple weeks ago, you need to go back and complete it, because again, it was a quiz. And I don't want to have to mark it as missing or a 0 in the gradebook for you. So make sure if you did not complete it, you go back. So the way you can tell that is if you go back and it still pops up on your screen in Elastic, or if it says the assignment and marks it that you were absent. That means you have not taken it yet. If you are marked absent, you will need to call me or text me. Texting is probably the best way, or even email, and you need to tell me I need to redirect that quiz for you. So please, please, please go back and check that. That is a quiz. So obviously more points than a homework. Again, after this test, you cannot redo anything from this unit. So you want to go back and double check on Friday and make sure all of your homework and all of your work is done for this unit. Again, if it's marked absent or you need me to redirect it, please text me and I can do that for you. Please make sure when you text me, you tell me your name. I don't have all of your phone numbers saved in my phone. And so I need to know who I'm talking to because I need to know who I'm redirecting. So study, good luck. You guys will do great. You really enjoyed this unit, I know, and stuck with me through all of this craziness. So I'm ready to start another unit on Monday, and I'm still trying to figure out angels and demons, so that might work. But all right, guys, miss you so much. Bye, guys.